And good morning. Today we are continuing with our series on the Turkey Run State Park 5 Mile Challenge. Today we are going to be looking at the Lusk Home, which is the next stop on our journey where we got to take a picture. So hang tight and welcome along for the ride. All right, so we're starting on Trail 4. We're a little early from the Lusk House, but that's by design because the Narrows Covered Bridge is on our way. And the Narrows Covered Bridge is not part of the 5 Mile Challenge, so we do not need to take a picture of it. However, that's just a shame because you should always stop and take pictures of covered bridges, and this is right on the way. Along with the covered bridge, when Salman Lusk built his home, he also built a grist mill on Sugar Creek, and it was right in this general area. I don't know if this is the place where I'm standing. Looks like it might be a good place. What do I know about the construction of a grist mill? All I know is this one had a horizontal wheel, which is a little different than what we normally see with the vertical wheel. Like if you've ever been to Spring Mill State Park, that's a more traditional mill that has the vertical spinning wheel. Anyway, if I was going straight to the Lusk Home, this is where I would turn off this trail and head up here. So, but since we want to go check out the covered bridge, we're just going to continue along this trail. And there's a little detour we'll take on the way back. Anyway, these covered bridges, or this covered bridge, there's been a covered bridge at this location for a long time. Salman Lusk built one in 1840, and then that one was destroyed in 1847, so he rebuilt in the same location in 1847. The one that was destroyed in 1847, there was a flood that came through. There was a whole community here, and a flood came through on, I think, New Year's Day, 1847, washed away everything that was here, including the mill, including this bridge, including everybody's house, except for the Lusk Home up on top of the hill, which we'll see. And so he rebuilt this bridge in 1847. It was later rebuilt again in 1875, and then that was replaced in 1882. 1882, it's going to be very similar to what we have here. This bridge was built by J.A. Britton for a contract of $3,400. This was the first bridge that J.A. Britton built. Evidently, he had a huge career building covered bridges. Some people don't like it, whatever. This one was then rebuilt in 1977. So this thing lasted almost 100 years before it was rebuilt, and I think that was the last time it was rebuilt. So that's what we're seeing today is this 1977 version. I don't see where it was actually destroyed. Maybe it was just restored. Anyway, so now we're going through the little detour trail. It's an actual trail. I didn't make this up. And you can see the Lusk Home up on the hill. And if you picture all these houses in this low area, and this is where I'm assuming they were because the trees here do not look really old. Yeah, they're pretty old, but they're not those huge ones we see in other places of the park. So all this stuff on the lower levels were flooded out. And you say, but Adam, the river is so low. How could this be? You have to remember from our last episode where I showed you the picture of where the Sugar Creek suspension bridge was underwater. So this river can get very long. This is just showing you where the trail, if we would have gone straight up from earlier. And so now we're back on the regular Trail 4, heading up to the Lusk Home. So that was the Narrows Bridge. I enjoy the covered bridges. Um, I have a nice trail I do on my motorcycle that I travel from bridge to bridge to bridge to bridge, and at some point I took pictures of all of them. But since the 2 years that I've created that route, so many of these bridges are now closed and you can't get to them or you cannot drive over them. Obviously, the Narrows covered bridge is no longer one that you can drive or ride your motorcycle over. There's a newer bridge further to the east of it, which is a regular bridge on what's called the Narrows Road. So here, I like when all the leaves are down. I don't like it that I'm still finding a ton of trash, but there's a ton of trash here. And as soon as you find one bit, you look around and then you see another bit. And before you know it, you're just finding all kinds of stuff. I wish people would just if they're going to drop their trash, don't get me wrong, I wish they wouldn't drop their trash. But if they would, I wish they just drop it on the trail instead of heaving it out into the woods. Just the fact that they're heaving it out into the woods makes me believe that they know they're doing it wrong. They're being a bad person, but they just don't care. So, whatever. I'll pick it up. Still have my rules. Still not picking up diapers because that's just gross, and they're heavy and they take up a lot of space, and they're gross. That's the worst part. So we're gonna come up to the top of this hill. Well, right now I look like I'm drunk. Come up to the top of the hill, take a right, and we'll be around the Lusk Home. And you can take a picture anywhere around here. There is a sign up here, so let's check this out. So Salmon Lusk was the original builder on this piece of property. He built a log cabin on this area in 1822 and lived there with his wife and 8 children until 1841 when he built this house. Before we get too much further, this is the grave of Carolyn Lusk. She was Salmon Lusk's daughter. She was born in March 12th, 1839, and then died in 12 November 1842. So, sad story, but back in the day, it happened. So, this house was built in 1841. In 1880, John Lusk inherited the property, and that's who I think a lot of people relate to this property is John Lusk, and he was quite the character. And I found this old document that talks about him, and it says when Polly Lusk died, that would be his mom, her son John became a recluse. He boarded up the window of his mother's room, lest unfriendly eyes gaze upon her possessions. For 35 years he lived alone in the old brick homestead with an aura of mystery and strange tales grew up about him. Was it true, people wondered, that John never threw away his newspapers, but let them accumulate on the floor through the years until they reached the height of several feet, and he had to make a path through them, as one digs a path through the snow in order to reach his bed, his table, his stove? Was it true that he was a very small boy, he wandered away from the house and lost for a day and a night to be finally found far from home asleep with some half-wild hogs? Was it true that he used a cheese barrel for a cupboard for his food and at meal times used the top of this barrel for a table, putting the lid back on when he had finished and used the leftovers for the next meal? And there is more, more, more. And the next paragraph says, yes, it is all true. And there's some things in here that cannot be true. Did he really and truly, when he had completed shearing a sheep, grab the sheep's tail in his mouth and with a mighty toss of his head sling the poor animal out of the door? This guy had a reputation, and if you look at the pictures of him, you can see that there was a lot of stuff. So anyway, we take a picture of the Lusk home. Do yourself a favor, stop by the nature center, and they have a good video on the Lusk family and the Lusk home. And I don't think it touches everything, but there's still a lot. Anyway, as I said, this is the second installment of our Turkey Run 5 Mile Challenge series. Next up, we're going to be going to the Punch Bowl and the Camelback. So I got to look up and see what the Camelback is all about. Anyway, here's some trash we picked up. Found a Frisbee. Well, I guess I'm not allowed to call it a Frisbee because probably wasn't made by the Frisbee people, but whatever. So hope to see you next time, and thanks for coming along. Goodbye.